Welcome to another edition of Namsoli Explains. In this episode, we're going to take a look at the Roll20 API and maybe learn a little something about it using Combat Tracker. But before we get started, what I'd like to ask you to do is leave me a comment. Just let me know what you think about what I'm doing, anything you would like me to show you, things like that. And if you like what we're doing here, please share it with a friend. That's all I'm going to ask for today. Those two things. And let's get started. To begin using APIs in Roll20, we first need to go to our game's homepage. Then we will click on the Settings button, and then from the drop-down, we will choose API Scripts. This will take us to our API sandbox, where we can explore scripts that are available and load ones to our game. Now, you can use any code that you type if you're good with JavaScript. I'm not particularly good at coding, so we'll pick one from the menu here. They have a Roll20 API script library, and one of the scripts that I want to show you is called Combat Tracker. So just type Combat into the search bar and Combat Tracker shows up. You will see that in the API output console, no existing sandbox is found, preparing sandbox to start on game activity. When you click Combat Tracker, it shows you some information about the API and then allows you to install it at the very bottom. So add script. It is now added to your game, and you can look at the API information here under Combat Tracker. If you find that your script stops working or is non-responsive while you're playing your game, just click on the Restart API Sandbox button, and that will relaunch the sandbox. It will start on game activity. So what we'll do is go back to our game, launch it, and then I'll show you some additional uses for Combat Tracker. You'll notice when you first log in after loading Combat Tracker that there'll be the Combat Tracker first time setup menu show up in the chat box. You'll notice that the command to launch it is !CT. The initiative attribute is set off of the character sheet. It shows a marker image, and I'll show you how that looks. Stop on close, auto pull maps, turn order, timer config. One thing that I found annoying is that there's a timer on this thing that basically says they have 2 minutes to make an action. Now, this will help speed up your game, but I found that I don't need it. So I'm going to disable that. And then we're going to go back to the setup. Announcement config, macro config. You can do different macros to go back and forth. If you want to see something about Combat Tracker, just type ! That's generally how you get access to APIs, and then CT, and then that shows you start combat and favorite conditions. Now, one of the macros that I create is in the and we'll start the macro quick bar here. So there's 4 macros that I normally create with this API. The first one will be to start combat. So we call it start. It is ! CT start. Now what this will do is, if we have this written right, we'll start the turn order and roll initiative for any selected token. Notice the orange marker around Runa to show where she is. We also need a macro to stop combat. So I call it stop, do CT stop, and then save changes, show in bar. That way we can just click the button. And now you can see the combat tracker takes away the initiative tracker and clears it, which is very important. The next one we want to do is do next. This way, if somebody needs to go and you want to move forward combat, you can click next, CT next. And to go with next, we're going to do previous. So that's PREV and simply CTPREV. Be very careful how you type. It is case sensitive. Hit Save Changes and bar. Now, when we see here, you can see Start Combat, all these things. So whenever, notice this little bar here comes up whenever Combat Tracker starts. That allows players to hit done when they're finished and go on to the next player. So we'll hit start. We'll see that Runa goes into the initiative tracker. We hit done when done. You notice that it's now round 2. But if that's not enough, we can go back and it now goes back to round 1. And those are some basic functions that I find very useful in my games for Combat Tracker. Well, there you go. Now you can load an API into your account if you have the Pro version of Roll20. I look forward to the next time. Until then, good gaming.